Question.
Do you have an example of how you like tamp fear? Like, is there something you usually like think of or like say to yourself to tamp fear?
It's a combination of things. I did write in that article about one way to do it is to have some perspective, but I'm also moderately prepared by not memorizing it, by not scripting it. I don't have the pressure to be word perfect. It's like I'm having a conversation with you. And so, number one is being moderately prepared. I don't say just wing it, especially as a beginner. Be moderately prepared, but then reduce it all to one index card. Practice once or twice, either into your phone or with a friend, and then have perspective. Say the world isn't going to end if you suck, especially if you're young. Nobody's expecting you to be a world-class speaker, and realize it'll get better next time. And you can only control what you can control. Like I cannot control whether you're going to like me or not, but I'm doing the best I can. I promise you. But I did a moderate amount of preparation for this, and then I go forth rather than allow perfectionism or fear or excess belief in the importance of almost anything to make me anxious. And I just do my best and then let go of the outcome. I'm no Buddhist, but that's the concept. I am in the moment with you right now, and I'm grateful to be in the moment with you. But after I've said my thing and listened to you and asked your questions or whatever, that's out of my control. And that's how I stay calm. One more story about that. I was honored to write the cover story for Family Circle. Family Circle is a all women's magazine had 8 million circulation. And this was when I was very young. And I was honored. It was called How to Make This Your Best School Year Yet. I was really excited to see it. And this was before the internet. And out comes the issue, and they had left out paragraphs 2 through 4. It made no sense. So I felt so embarrassed. But in the end, the world goes on. There are millions of speeches. You do the best you can. And we have bigger fish to fry in the world than Marty Nemco's speech or Louisa Eloy's speech or Sarah Barton's speech or Janaka Krishna's speech or even Mark Esposito's speech. So it's a combination of caring enough to be well prepared, not memorizing, and then having perspective. That's my best shot. Is that at all of any help?
Yeah, that really helped. Thank you.
Okay. I love to see the hands up. Great. I'm going to go left to right. Louisa Eloy. Louisa, what's your question?
Hi, my question was, I know that a lot of people experience kind of like the blank whenever they get nervous before a talk. Um, how how would you deal with that? Like what would you say to people that like struggle with this, with the like just having like a blank whenever they want to speak in public?
Great. Okay. So it's the same thing as I said before, but I'm going to try to add something to it. Let's say you in the acting world they call it going up on your lines. Can you imagine you're in a scene in a play and you've now here you've got to memorize your lines and your acting partner is waiting for you to say your thing and you go blank, deer in the headlights. The best you can do is take a breath, go back to maybe where you were and where you can remember, and maybe even laugh at yourself. If I screw up, by the way, every radio announcer is trained when they misspeak to laugh deliberately, to both relax themselves and let the audience know they're not completely out of control. Just breathe, take a step back, look at your index card, go back to something that's comfortable, and begin. Even if you have to ad lib, the world doesn't end. Have some perspective. Is that at all of any help? No, no BS. Is that of any help to you?
Yeah, especially the laughing one. I think yeah, I feel like it sounds more natural. That happened to me once and I would just yeah, but yeah, that really does help. Thank
And
you.
it'll happen again. And it'll happen again, and you will survive.
I hope
That
so. Thank
is
you.
human. It's like let's say when you've gone out on a date and you said something stupid to your date. In itself, you'll survive. You can even, if you laugh at it and apologize, I've just gone blank. I don't know what to say. If you say it comfortably like that, your audience will be with you. They'll respect you that you didn't freak. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Sarah Barton.
Hi, can you hear me?
beautifully.
Okay. My question is, how do you know what is the proper way to transition from one idea to the next when giving a talk?
Great question. It's very useful to provide your audience with a structure. There's an old phrase in public speaking that says, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then told them what you told them. So if you've got a structure, and you'll note in that article, I said, have just a few non-obvious but important points, 3, 4 points, whatever it is. Up front, say, I'm going to tell you 4 important points here. Here they are, 1, 2, 3, 4. By the way, I believe more in using a handout, which is what I sent you the article, than a PowerPoint because I want to create the chemistry. So I'm going to tell you these 4 points. After you tell the first point, then you say, okay, now on to point number 2. And then you finish that and you're on to point number 3. They love the structure for that. They know what's coming. That structure is very valuable. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Gustavo.
I had a question on you mentioned how like most often your audience is pretty interested in what you're talking about. But what do you do if like they're not satisfied with what you're talking about or they're disinterested, like going onto their phones or something like that?
Okay, let's say you, and forgive, I hope you don't mind if I curse, everybody curses. Let's say you don't give a shit about a topic. It's an assignment you have for school and you have to give a talk on it, right? Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, great. Treat it as it's still a great exercise. You want to be a good public speaker. It's really fun. If you're good, you'll get asked back to speak at conferences. I have been involved with a number of academic groups, and the ones who get ahead are not necessarily just the best scientists, but they have the art of presenting well. Even if you're talking about medieval European linguistics, treat it as an opportunity to get, and give my language, fucking awesome at being a speaker on that. Find something you're excited about within that, something surprising, something not obvious, something important. Find a way to tie it to your life, even if it is Indo-European medieval linguistics. Find the 3 best talking points, give an example of how it could be relevant to your life today, and then use it to practice, and you'll be more motivated. We all have to do crap we don't like. We're entering tax season now. You think I like doing my taxes? I hate doing my taxes. But I got to do it. So I just make it fun. I do it in little bits and I say, okay, after this, I'm going to get to do blah, whatever blah is. Fair enough? Not everything is going to be fun. There's a phrase I love also called get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because there's going to be times you're going to be uncomfortable. Times you're going to do crap you don't want to do. But if you really care about succeeding, and Berkeley students do care about success, such is life, I'm going to do a great job talking about, Sanskrit. Does
Yeah,
that help? Honestly.
yeah, that definitely helps. Thank you.
Cool. Questions, or we should move to the activity?
Can I ask one question? Can I ask you a question, Marty?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, I want to just sort of you made one interesting point, which I didn't learn until many, many, many years about how much people remember from your talk after you finish your talk, and how that can be a source of comfort when you're beating yourself up the next day that you blew it.
A great point. Think about everybody. I wrote it in the article, but think back to some class you took a week ago, not a week ago. How much do you really remember from it? Usually little. So that's why it's really important that you focus on the most important few you really want them to remember. In the world of public relations, the PR person says, what are your 3 talking points? One thing you want to most remember. So don't, as I wrote in the article, tyranny of content. Academics are the worst, professors. They feel this need to cover every last thing, and so nobody remembers anything. They assign 1,000-page reading lists per semester. So people use Cliff Notes, or they don't read it at all. I was actually there's a group of Berkeley, there were graduates who had the highest GPAs, 4.0s or whatever. I met privately over pizza, and they admitted to me they don't read everything that's assigned. So when you're a speaker, don't succumb to the tyranny of pick the few most important points and make them. By the way, and notice in the article, I reduced it to 7 steps. And I'm going to end today I'm going to try to demonstrate storytelling with a very powerful one thing that almost everybody remembers, even when they talk to me 10 years later, they remember this. So think of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things the most that you want to really have them remember for more than 20 seconds. There's an old joke about being a Berkeley student that at 20 seconds after the final, everything goes out the other ear. Any other questions, which is fine? Or should we let's move to the activity? Yeah, okay. So you've had a chance to get the content of what I've wanted you to learn. But of course, we don't learn from a lecture. We don't even learn as much from question and answer. We learn by doing. So Mark has very impressively learned how to divide you up into pairs. And I'm going to ask you in each pair for whichever one whose first name is first in the alphabet to, in 1 minute, give a public, like you would talk to that person, your partner, as though you were giving a talk. I'm energetic. I tend to talk fast. Be you, just a little more persuasive, a little more compelling for 1 minute, telling something interesting about you. It could be something you're excited about, something you're afraid of, something you're interested in that most people don't know. Anything you want to talk, your hobby, your career goal, you don't know what the hell you want to do with your life. One thing for 1 minute. And then afterwards, ask your partner for honest feedback on what they liked and what they most important message of all. Like we talked about the tyranny of content. This is very important, especially for Berkeley students in 2024. It's really relevant. And I'm also going to try to model, as best as I can, excellence in storytelling. So as you listen, don't just listen to the words. Listen to what I'm doing and how I'm doing it to see if there's a nugget that you want to take away and remember when you give a talk so that you are memorable. Because that's what you want to be, is memorable, not in a stupid way, but in a good way. Because I'd be scared if I was a young person right now, because the job market, even a lot of the unemployment rate officially is low, but that's bullshit. The number of good jobs is terrible. It's really hard, really competitive. And as I said, very often the thing that will give you the edge, is being a memorable interviewee in a job interview. And believe me, in job interviews, if you can tell a story, this story is going to take longer. It's going to take 5 minutes. You don't want to tell 5-minute stories in a job interview. But if you can, I could tell this in a 30-second version. But if you can tell a story compellingly, you become memorable and more likely to get the job. If you're giving a talk at a conference, if you're memorable, you're more likely to get hired. If you're teaching, as a graduate teaching assistant, if you're memorable, they're more likely to say, what a great teacher she was. I love her. So this is the story. The year is 1939. The town is Sierpz, Poland. My father was a teenager. Notice how slow. Now I'm being very slow, dramatic, without seeming like an actor, but I'm trying to be dramatic in a way to get your attention. My dad was living with his parents and in a bucolic, halcyon town. Now, that's a fairly big word, bucolic, halcyon. Bucolic is peaceful or whatever, but I'm not talking down to you. I don't want to talk down to you. So even if you don't understand that word, big deal, but it makes you feel I'm respecting you. They lived in a bucolic town. Nobody even locked their door. Notice my specificity. Nobody even locked their door. I've made it concrete. And then one day, there was a knock on the door. And it was 2 Nazis in black boots. And unlike in the movies, and I say that in order to make it feel more real, because it is more real, unlike in the movies, they didn't yell. Notice my change of voice, higher, lower. They didn't yell. One was silent. And the other whispered, you will be out of your house with only what you can carry on your back by noon tomorrow, or else. Notice I changed my posture. If we were in person, you would see my whole body change. Your body is a musical instrument. It can be used. My hands are used. My body is used. You're a beginner. You're not going to do all this, but I'm trying to be aspirational here. This is, in my judgment, what to aim for. Unlike politicians who read off a teleprompter, I'm trying to be authentic while still being theatrical and memorable. By noon the next day, there weren't 2 Nazis. There were 12. And notice how I slowed down and lowered my voice. There were 12. I didn't yell, there were 12. There were 12. And 2 trucks. And now they weren't whispering anymore. They went into all the Jewish households and said, Raus! And they grabbed everybody and they took all of the young and old into one truck, my father's parents, and my father into another truck. And my father never saw his parents ever again. My father went to a series of work camps and ended up in the Ponary death camp. You can Google Ponary. What was his job in the Ponary death camp? Why wasn't he killed instantly? Because this was before the gas chambers. They simply threw the Jews into a pit and shot them. What was my father's job? He and 37 men, their job was to spread lime on them and burn them. And that night, after the first night of this, of course, it was intolerable. He and 37 men used the spoons that they were given for their gruel and dug a tunnel underneath the barbed wire fence. The good luck was the pit was next to the barbed wire fence. They escaped under the barbed wire, and most of them were shot. But my father was lucky and fast and ran into the woods, the Black Forest, where he lived for a year, thanks to the good Christians that took care of him. Now, I deliberately mentioned the Christians thing because I didn't want to seem this little Jew. No good. I want to be inclusive. I want to make it clear that I'm not just Jew only. That's all deliberate. I'm thinking about my audience all the time. And at the end of the war, he was dropped on a cargo boat and dropped in the Bronx, New York, without a penny to his name, with no English, no education, no family. Notice how slow, how deliberate. Even though my normal thing is talk fast, I'm a very fast New York Jew talker. That doesn't work. All he had was the scars of the Holocaust tortures. What did he do? No job was beneath him. The only job he could get, speaking no English, no education, was sewing shirts in a factory in Harlem for minimum wage or near, I don't know, something very little, of course. What did he do at night? After work, a 10-hour day. Did he say, I'm a Holocaust survivor, I'm a victim, I'm going to go and get shit-faced? Deliberately use shit-faced to lighten it a little bit, right? No. He went to Roosevelt High School night school to learn English because he knew that if he didn't speak good English, he would forever be consigned to low-level work. And what did he do on Saturdays? Did he say, oh, I'm a Holocaust survivor, my parents were killed, I have suffered the ultimate tortures, Jews have been victims of oppression for 2,000 years, I'm going to go in and watch Saturday morning football? No. He went to the owner of the little factory and said, can I buy these shirts that I sewed for you during the week and sell them out of a cardboard box on the streets? And he bought them for $1 and sold them for $1.50. What did he do with the money? Did he say party time? No. You see, he had met my mom, an Auschwitz survivor, in Roosevelt High School night school. And we were living in a tenement, a real tenement in the Bronx, underneath an elevated train that roared 24/7, no air conditioning. And New York is really hot in the summer. And my dad wanted to get us out of there. And it was a dangerous area, bad area. So he saved up enough money so he could afford the first and last month's rent on any store he could afford, which was in the most dangerous neighborhood in Brooklyn, Williamsburg. Now Williamsburg is gentrified, but back then it wasn't. Notice how I'm changing. I'm being conversational in the middle. I'm not scripted. I have an idea what I'm going to say, but I go off on these little tangents so it feels really authentic. The store was unbelievable. It was on one side, there was a live chicken market that where the smell of stale blood merged. On the other side of my father's store was a Puerto Rican deli specializing in chicharrones, deep fried pork intestines. So the smell of the deep fried pork intestines and the stale blood merged at my father's little clothing store. The store was so small that all the merchandise had to be stored, most of it outside on folding tables because the store was too small. And I said it was very dangerous thing. And after school and on the weekends, the kids would come by and they would simply grab boxes of shirts and sunglasses and whatever. My father couldn't afford security. When I turned 12, he said, Martin, I want you to come in, you be security guard. You don't stop them, they'll kill you. Just watch. There'll be fewer of them will steal. And one day, I was doing that on a Saturday, and business was slow. And the most memorable moment of my life was when there was a parking meter in front of the store. And I rested my elbow on one side of the curved parking meter. And my dad mirrored me. He rested his elbow on the other side. And finally, when you're 12, you're not quite as egotistical and self-absorbed as when you were younger. And I said, Daddy, how come you so rarely talk about the Holocaust? And he stiffened, which is something he rarely did. And he said, Martin, the Nazis took 5 years from my life. I won't give them 1 minute more. He said, Martin, never look back. Always take the next step forward. And I've had the privilege of having been a career counselor and personal coach to 6,000 people. And one of the differentiating factors between some of the really successful people I've worked with and some strugglers is the successful ones have failed, like all of us fail at times. But the successful ones are far more likely to rebound, to follow my father's advice and say, stop looking back. I'm going to take the next step forward. And I can leave you with no better advice. And that's how I end my speeches.
Marty, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was really wonderful. And the students have learned a lot, and we will share the recording. Let me make sure I don't mess it up. Let me just stop it.